Susan Michel, Myrna Skoller. This mic is all yours.
Hi, this is Susan Michel. I'm here in Western Massachusetts. It is great to be here as always. I am the author of Surrender to Joy, From Suicide to Serenity. I teach the transformational truth of A Course in Miracles, which we are all here to study, to learn, to embody the knowledge of. I have my two beautiful soul sisters with me, Myrna Skoller. How are you today, Myrna?
Great, great. Weather's beautiful. Woke up this morning, sun is shining. It's not terribly hot as it normally is during the summer months, so we're relieved from that, and it's just beautiful. I took a nice walk around the diameter of the community, and it was nice.
Nice. And Glorian is here as well. How are you today, Glorian?
I'm doing well too. I'm just enjoying this beautiful autumn season
Mhm.
and very glad to be here with the both of you.
Yes, yes. And anyone else who would like to share, just raise your hand, let us know, because I always love learning from other Course in Miracles students and teachers. We learn from each other. I'll start off with the introduction of my book, as I like to do. What I write in my introduction is my passion is God. God is love and joy and beauty. He is all that is good in the world. Everything else is our own miscreation. When we are filled with joy, we are connected to God. When we are not joyful, we have lost our connection to all that is real. This is my message. It can be clarified with three simple words: surrender to joy. There is nothing to find. All we need to do is surrender. So when we are in a joy-filled state of mind that is based on love and compassion and truth and clarity and peace, we are more able to hear the wisdom of God, that we are a part of. So this is what A Course in Miracles is teaching us to do. A Course in Miracles is mind training. So it's really teaching us to focus on the truth of who and what we are as often as possible. I mean, we have two choices. We have the Holy Spirit on one shoulder and the ego on the other shoulder. So when we are able to align ourselves with the thoughts of the Holy Spirit, with the thoughts of Christ, with the thoughts of God, that's where we will find our peace, love, joy, and happiness. However, this world is obviously run on the egoic thought system. That's very obvious. So it's just really important to not take certain things too seriously, because Course in Miracles is telling us that everything is either love or a call for love. So when events happen in our life that trigger our fear, it's important to do our best to see through the triggers. It's important to do our best to stay aligned with the thoughts of God. Um, the one line that I just love, love, love in A Course in Miracles is, um, you cannot know your true power you cannot understand the true power of the Son in relationship to Father. Ooh, now I can't remember the exact words, but the point of the sentence that I love is that we need to recognize that we are completely dependent upon God in order to connect with our true power. So it's important to, I like that word surrender. It's important to surrender our will with a small w to God's will with a capital W. It's important to recognize that we are completely dependent upon God. And in recognizing that we are completely dependent upon God, we are not sacrificing anything at all, because God's will for me is the same as my will for myself. There is no sacrifice. So whenever possible, throughout the day, it's important to surrender our will to God, to listen to his voice, and to extend his love as often as possible to our brothers. I mean, A Course in Miracles is teaching us to be conduits for God's divine love. So we can extend this love to our brother as often as possible. And A Course in Miracles also says that giving and receiving is exactly the same thing, because tangible goods are irrelevant. Tangible goods don't matter. The only thing that's really important are ideas. And the only thing that can ever really cause angst is feeling separated from God. But we are never separated from God. So if we want to remember how much love we have within us, it's important to extend that love to our brother, because when we extend that love to our brother, we remember how much we have within our hearts, how much love we have in our hearts. So if we want to feel love, we don't need to go outside to the world to get someone to love us. That's coming from lack. That's coming from need. That's the way a lot of my relationships used to be. But if we want to feel loved, what we need to do is we need to extend that love to our brother. Oh, I was just going to ask Myrna her thoughts on that.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, like you said before, that ACIM is a mind training course, and everything that the mind directs us to do is what it does, whether it is through the lens of the ego or through the lens of spirit. It's our choice to choose which lens we want to look through to see how to train our minds so that we can really just focus on health and truth and through the lessons of the text, and also through the text and the workbook, the lessons as well, the text and the lessons, I guess that's what I really want to say, is that the Course teaches that the mind is the source of all experience. And by retraining the mind, we can achieve inner peace and self-awakening. And that's what we really aim to do. We want to awaken to the truth, because we're really asleep. The ego keeps us in a daze and not in the truth of what we aim to try to learn, because this is the only way to true peace. And I think we all want to achieve that. Peace is something that it makes us feel it's a letting go. It's being in the now. It's the truth of who we are. And the world really is just a projection of the mind, and by training the mind to see with what they call spiritual vision or the Holy Spirit, we can reinterpret situations and relationships through either love or fear, and it depends on what we want to look at. So as I said before, with the ego, it's strictly fear, really. I mean, we do have happy moments, or at least the ego will convince us of that, but those moments are not lasting. What's truly lasting is what we choose to embody through the teachings of what the Course in Miracles aims for us to learn and to teach as well. Because, you've said many times that teaching and learning are the same thing. And so, the course encourage us to have, self-observation, I guess you might say, and mindfulness, helping us to catch unhelpful thoughts and then consciously choose differently. So that is, I think as you say, it's mind training. It's all mind training. And we've certainly learned that through the concepts of A Course in Miracles and the principles that certainly works, you know. And in summary, I guess the Course in Miracles is mind training because it provides us with structure. It does give us structure, the lessons and the spiritual practices, and it's designed to teach us to retain our thought patterns and to forgive, which is the central theme of A Course in Miracles, and awaking to loving awareness. That is really the key. And its transformation, aims to free the mind from limiting beliefs, as you will, and opening the way to lasting inner peace. So that is what we try to become, to live with, to live the course is to give in a way, is to say that I'm going to now accept its principles because that's the only thing that promotes healing. So, any thoughts about that, Glorian?
Yes, beautiful, beautiful sharing by both of you. When you were speaking, Myrna, it was coming to me about peace, and it really flows through our realized soul. It throws through our identification with oneness, and what you were saying about living the course, and that's it, allowing it, we become the living demonstration of the course as we accept it into our consciousness, as we accept these concepts as our own, we make them our own. And what Susan started out with, everything is a teaching learning situation. And Jesus tells us that those who meet are perfect for each other because it sets up this perfect teaching learning situation. So, of course, we all come together here and we love the reflection of love's presence that we have here. But even those brothers that, tempt us, we recognize that, Jesus tells us, brother at your hand I live, or brother at your hand I die. So again, it's a perfect teaching learning situation. Everything is unfolding perfectly for our good. The idea of the mind training, it's so important to recognize that. And that's why for me, I do the workbook lesson every single year because more and more layers are peeled off and we go deeper and deeper into the unconscious to make it conscious so that I can let go of it. So he tells us, miracles become habits. So the idea is to work these principles, to allow the mind training to work through us, because then the shift from fear to love will become a habit, something that we can just, rely upon. And it comes to the point where we recognize error and we don't have to work through it. We just see it as error and we laugh at it and let it go. But there are other things that are going to tempt us that are really the gifts that offer us that opportunity to relinquish our held on to fear and guilt that we still are projecting out there. And I think it's very important too that each day we take that and we practice the presence of God being where we stand and allowing that to go forth and make those crooked places straight. And Susan, you said something on sacrifice. And it's very clear for me, when in the workbook lesson, I gladly make the sacrifice of fear. So we want to make the sacrifice of fear because the only thing that we're really sacrificing is the awareness of our divinity. So that's the goal. When we see sacrifice, to remember that I'm only sacrificing the awareness of what I am in truth by holding on to this or wanting to be right or person, place, thing, condition, thinking that those special relationships are going to provide for us what we could only receive from the Christ within. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. You both said a lot of really insightful, beautiful things. Thank you for your shares. Glorian, you say you do the Course in Miracles lessons every year. I mean, I've heard some, I mean, I think that's fabulous. I've heard some people say, oh, you know, I've finished a Course in Miracles. I did the lessons. I'm finished. I don't really understand how you can ever be finished with the Course in Miracles. I mean, I guess until you reach that enlightened state. And that is a challenging state to reach, you know. I think we've all experienced bouts of enlightenment, you know, during our lifetime, especially being Course in Miracles students. I mean, there's times when we feel totally connected to our creator, but then the ego jumps back in and we lose that connection. So, the Course in Miracles is teaching us to consistently keep that connection with God, you know, and that is just a really beautiful way to live. I mean, there's always opportunities to learn, you know, as Myrna and myself and Gloria, and as we say so often, everything in life is a lesson or a blessing. The blessings are fun. The lessons are here to learn from. And there's so many lessons. There's so many opportunities to learn. I think what happens is we have pain points within our unconscious mind. You know, most of these pain points happen as children. We get hurt. We don't have the tools to process the pain. So the pain stores itself in our unconscious mind. And then what happens is life triggers us. If we didn't have those pain points stored in our unconscious mind, it would be impossible for life to trigger us. But because we all have pain points in our unconscious mind, life triggers us, and then it's important not to react to those triggers. It's important to take responsibility for our triggers, to know that our triggers are here to teach us, and to again, instead of react from a fear-based place, it's important to pause and to respond from a place of love. And that's how our lessons are learned. That's how our pain points transform themselves. When we can own the pain, you know, and sit with the pain, and then realize that the pain, the fear, you know, has no power over us. I really think this is how we transform from fear to love. I mean, basically, anything that comes from love is a miracle. But in a way, a miracle is a shift in perception. You know, I love that analogy about looking at that picture, you know, that is a whole bunch of dots and blotches. And if you look at the picture in one way, you can see an ugly old woman. You can see the tip of the woman's nose, and it has a big bump, and it's just the kind of the profile of an ugly old woman. But then again, if you shift your perception and you look for the beauty, you see beautiful young woman. And I think the nose turns into the nape of the young woman's neck. So again, I mean, if you want to see the fear, if you want to see the ugliness, you will see that. But if you want to see the beauty, and if you want to look at the exact same picture in a different way, you can see a beautiful young woman. You can see the beauty instead of the ugliness. You know, and that's true with anything that happens to us in life. You know, anything at all. I mean, if a car cuts us off in the road, instead of getting upset and giving the other driver the middle finger and honking our horn, if we were just to see that the other driver is having a bad day and the other driver is upset, and then extend our love to the other driver, there is so much healing that can occur from that. So it's A Course in Miracles clearly states that everything is either love or a call for love. And in order to access the love within ourselves, we need our brother. We need to extend that love to our brother, because by extending that love to our brother, we remember how much we have within ourselves to give. A Course in Miracles teaches healing through relationships. A Course in Miracles teaches us that we cannot get into heaven by ourselves. We need to transform our relationships from special relationships to holy relationships to enter into that heavenly state. There's a beautiful sentence that I found in A Course in Miracles, and what this sentence states is, there is no strain in doing God's will as soon as you recognize that it is also your own. So there is nothing that we need to sacrifice. We don't need to struggle. We don't need to effort. We don't need to push. Actually, when we're doing God's will, there's an ease, there's a flow. And what's important to remember is that God's will for me is the same as my will for myself. I think it was not today's lesson, but I think it was yesterday's lesson that the subject line states in lesson 317, I follow in the way appointed me. And what Jesus goes on to write in this lesson is, I have a special place to fill, a role for me alone. Salvation waits until I take this part as what I choose to do. So there is something that is my passion and is my purpose. And when I can align my mind with the mind of God, I will basically be following in the way that he appointed for me. Time kind of stops when we lose ourselves in the moment. As Course in Miracles, as we spoke about last week in Gather, Myrna spoke about writing, how when she writes, she just loses track of time. And I think when we experience that, we're actually connected with God, because there is a way that God appointed for us. And when we are at peace, we are connected to the way that God appointed for us. Thoughts, Myrna?
Yes, too. You mentioned before perception, and I think of the Course in Miracles where it says perception versus knowledge, and perception is really, I think, the realm of all illusion, where each person sees a world differently, a world shaped by their own thoughts and beliefs. Whereas knowledge, when we gain knowledge, in contrast, it represents the unchangeable reality of God, which is what we aim to look for, the changeless within us, which can only be known when the mind is healed and free of judgment. So I think that the Course definitely encourages us to recognize the limitations of perception and to seek a shift. We want to shift towards true vision. And, and true vision is really a loving and a forgiving way of seeing the world, which is what the course aims to teach us. It's not about changing the world. It's about changing our mind about the world. And that is really something to really focus on, because we're not going to change the world, but if we change the mind about the world, then then we have a better chance of changing the perception to true knowledge. And then, of course, what do we think? We think, well, how do we do that? Well, again, the course definitely it stresses the forgiveness, and that's a means to correct perception. It's not about pardoning real wrongs or about recognizing that perceived grievances are projections of the ego, because they're not ultimately real. Okay, so that's really what it is, recognizing that grievances are projections of the ego, and ultimately, as I said, are not real. So by practicing forgiveness, I think we can let go of fear, judgment, and just let perception be transformed into a reflection of love. Any thoughts about that, Gloria?
Yeah, I love that. I love that. Moving into true perception, that it's just based upon our willingness. And the idea is in true perception, Jesus tells us the Holy Spirit sees what we see, but believes it not. So that's our job, to align with that true perception, with that Christ mind. And then we're going to see the reflection of love's presence everywhere. And what the beauty is it's just based on our willingness. We just have to be willing to do it. I think we shared a little bit about this before, about love and that recognition that, special love is motivated by fear. And when we move into that impersonal love, we moved into creation, what I am in truth. And you made me laugh there, Susan, when you spoke about someone saying that they finished the course. And I recently had this as well. And I said to the person, if you had finished the course, I would not be seeing it. It would disappear. Everything here would disappear. So, you have to laugh. But the idea is, I don't think we ever finish this course. It's an unfoldment. And, I really do believe in infinity. So the infinite, invisible life. So to me, there's only eternality. So I look at it like I'll never be finished the course, but my idea is to be the student that's receptive to the voice for God. So, when we recognize that, any human thought is separation, and every thought is a projection of duality. So if we're still seemingly here, we haven't moved into complete forgiveness, where judgment and projection would cease to be. Anyway, that's my bit on that. But I was laughing because someone did say that to me, that they did that. They did the course. So, okay, sure. When you were talking about everything here being a lesson, so the lesson is always, I am not a body. The blessing is the realization of what I am, which is I'm not a body. So everything can really become a lesson and a blessing once we look at it with true perception. I was laughing what you said also about the driving, and, we made a practice of that in my original group, that instead of, like you said, giving the middle finger, whatever, and the first response we would have, especially here as New Yorkers, the idea would be, instead of saying that, you would say, bless you, brother. And in that recognition, you're not willing to participate in the insanity of road rage or any of that. You're just letting all things be as they are and saying, okay, I'm going to bless you. I'm going to make no demands, instead of curse you, which aligns me and keeps me here in hell. And the lesson that yesterday's lesson, I particularly liked it also. I follow in the way appointed me. That's really the only thing that we have to do, is become willing to be receptive to that still small voice and allow it to lead and guide our life. So he's telling us, I have a special place to fill. a role for me alone because we're the only one that can make that choice. And the choice is always ego or spirit. Salvation waits until I take this part as what I choose to do. So there again, I choose. It's the willingness to accept my salvation, which is the realization of my oneself is united with my creator. And that's what I truly am, my divinity. Until I make this choice, I am slave of time and human destiny because we're in the ego, which is going to continue to project fear and guilt. But when I willingly and gladly go the way my Father's plan appointed me to go, then will I recognize salvation is already here, already given all my brothers and already mine as well, because we're accepting the reality of the love of God. Creation is love, and nothing can ever be separate and apart for that. So we just have to be willing to listen. The way appointed me to go is to use Holy Spirit's judgment, which is always God's Son is guiltless. And if I'm recognizing God's Son as guiltless, I've accepted my guiltlessness. So it's a process and we work it. But like we said, the more we work it, miracles become habits. And it just becomes part of our embodiment. And that embodiment is not in the body, it's in our consciousness. It's something that we then rely on because we've just made it our own. And my teacher was really big on that, that we don't just say things by rote or whatever. Or like I'll even say, don't accept something because I say it. The idea is to make this our own. I think it was Myrna who said, living the course, living the infinite way, living these teachings. She gave beautiful testimony at my meeting before about, relying on spirit totally. And that's what we're here to do, to recognize what we are and have that become the embodiment of our experience. Will we become afraid? Absolutely. The ego speaks first. And the only thing that we need to get rid of is human thought. So he says, it's your way is what I choose today. The ego can't choose that. We have to surrender that ego to the joy of what we are, which is the love of God, which is when we choose that, we're at peace. Where it would lead me where it would lead me, do I choose to go? So, like, this is reminding me of what Jesus says in our last lessons. This holy instant I would give to you, be you in charge at my request. For I would follow you, certain your direction gives me peace. If I need a word, if I need a thought, if I need an open, tranquil mind. So the idea is it's just merely waiting on our welcome and our willingness to allow Spirit to guide and direct our lives where everything is perfect. And he says, all my sorrows end in your embrace, in the embrace, in my consciousness of what I am, the one singular reality. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Gloria. Dove?
Yeah, I wanted to say that you were talking earlier about our will and God's will is really the same will. That's exactly what he says in lesson 101 and 102. And that will is to be happy. Of course, it's the most natural thing. Of course, we all want to be happy.
God's will for me is perfect happiness. Thank you. Well, thank you, Myrna. Thank you, Gloria. And thank you, Dove. A lot of wisdom is being shared here today. I had many thoughts come to mind. I try to always give examples, from my life. It was interesting because yesterday I had a job at a store, and I always say that dogs are just such a wonderful way to remember God. I mean, dogs spelled backward is God. Dogs are so unconditionally loving, aren't they? And the owner of this store had a dog, Tucker. And when I went up to her office, I had to actually discard my ice, and there was a big sink in her office. I was holding the bucket of ice, so I didn't have any free hand. And Tucker, the dog, came up to me and started barking and wanted my attention, but I couldn't pat Tucker because I didn't have a free hand. But so then Tucker barked a little louder. He actually bit my pants and tugged on my pants a little bit, it was really so cute. So then I go to the sink, I dumped the ice out, I put the bucket down, and I came over and I started patting Tucker, the dog, on his head. He stopped barking, he put his head on my leg, and he started rubbing up against my leg, and you could hear him kind of just like purr silently, those little doggy uh, love notes that they make, those love sounds that they make. But he was like so happy when I was giving him attention. He was so happy when I was petting his head, and he just continued to just love me, and his whole demeanor changed when I was giving him attention and loving him. And I think we're all like that in so many ways. We just all want love and attention. And when we're given love and attention, our whole demeanor changes. Everything is either love or a call for love. And the same thing happened again when I was on my way out of the office and I was leaving Tucker. Again, I gave him a pat on the head. I said goodbye, and he was so happy and so quiet and so peaceful and so docile. But then as I started walking down the stairs and he knew that I was going away, at first he barked, and then when I continued to walk away, he growled, he growled at me because he wanted me to come back, because he was angry. And again, we're all kind of like that. We want love, and when we don't feel like we're getting love, we do things, to get that attention. So if we could just see everyone, like little Tucker, either extending love or asking for love. What is fear? Fear is when we ask for love. I remember so many examples of that within my own family. My father loved to be the center of attention because I think when he was a child, he just didn't get enough attention. He was living at one boarding school after another boarding school, and he just didn't get attention from his family, his parents. So as an adult, he just craved attention. And when we were giving my father attention, you could see that he was very happy. He was getting the attention that he wanted. But then when we didn't give my dad attention, he would just get up and he would leave the room. So, I mean, I guess that's the way to look at it, not to get angry at people for behaving poorly. It wasn't very nice for my dad to just get up and leave the room during important events such as Thanksgiving dinner, but to see it as a call for love, because everything is either love or a call for love. And then Myrna so wisely said, it's not about changing the world. It's about changing our mind about the world. We can't change the world, but we can choose how we want to perceive the world. Do we want to perceive the world from a loving mindset, from a compassionate mindset, or do we want to see the world from an ego, from a fear-based mindset? So little Tucker, the dog, when he was barking at me, when he was growling at me, instead of getting scared, or angry, just to see that as a call for love. He wanted my love. He wanted my attention. When my dad used to get up and leave Thanksgiving Day dinner because he wasn't getting enough attention, instead of getting angry at him for just walking away, to see it as a call for love. I mean, that is how A Course in Miracles is teaching us to see the world. And it's just a very clear way to see the world, to come from love as often as possible. And again, as Myrna said, grievances are projections of the ego. Grievances, it has to do with resentment, has to do with guilt, it has to do with fear. I think that grievances, resentments, anger, it all falls under the umbrella of fear. And then it says right here in chapter 13, the cloud of guilt. It says, guilt remains the only thing that hides the Father. For guilt is the attack upon his Son. The guilty always condemn, and having done so, they will still condemn, linking the future to the past as the ego's law. So when we see our brother as guilty, we're blocking God. We are giving control to the ego. When we see ourselves as guilty, we're blocking God and we're giving control to the ego. The way out of the guilt is to forgive our brother and to forgive ourselves. And the way to connect to source energy, to connect to God, is by embodying our own innocence. That's our own innocence. That's what I say to myself every morning before I get out of bed. I embody the essence of innocence, because we can't feel God or connect to God when we are holding on to grievances or feeling guilty in any way. The only way we can connect to our truth is by embodying the essence of innocence. And the way to go from guilt to innocence is forgiveness. That's why God says forgiveness is so necessary here on earth, because the earth is still ruled by the egoic thought system. So the way out of the egoic thought system is through forgiveness. And it's radical forgiveness. It's not forgiving our brother for something that they did. It's about seeing through their mistake and realizing that it never really happened. If it was negative, it was an illusion. It never really happened. It's not like we see them as guilty, but because we're a better person, we're going to let them off the hook. No, it's about realizing that the error never occurred. So we always have a choice. And the only A Course in Miracles clearly states that those who want peace can only find it through complete forgiveness. Right, Myrna?
Yes, forgiveness. Yes. You were talking about animals, and that brought me to something that was very interesting. You and I often talk about Tina Louise Spalding. She's very, she channels Jesus, and I really like her channeling, and I often tune into her. Anyway, I noticed the other day on YouTube, she gave a talk, and the title was "The Killing of Ostriches." Ostriches. And so I, of course, clicked that on, and she told the story. She said and she was crying actually. She was saying that the Canadian government, I think she's Canadian, shot 300 ostriches. Took them hours to kill them and shoot them and kill them, and she went into the death of the killing spree, and she was in tears. And I guess the reason I think she stated was because 30 ostriches developed I don't know, some kind of a virus or something, and so they killed all they could find. And she thought that this really, really affected her. And I've never seen her in tears, never. And then she went on to do some channeling about, about she realizes that this is really an illusion as well, and that her mind has chosen to focus on the death and the destruction. And she sort of, said that that's what we do. We just, somehow help focus on these things. And it really is something that is that too is of the ego. And it made me think about, the Course, what the Course says about death, and, the transition actually that we call death really is seen as a release from the body. And but it doesn't affect the reality of the self, of the true self. And in this particular framework, death is not to be feared, but understood as a mistaken belief that can be corrected really through forgiveness and spiritual awakening. And that's how we overcome the fear of death, through that. You just spoke about that. And forgiveness is really no wonder is such a central part of the Course in Miracles, because through the correction of the illusion, by practicing forgiveness, it aids in our spiritual awakening. And I guess the ACIM teaches that the way to overcome fear, again, as I said, forgiveness, and seeing beyond appearances and recognizing the eternal innocence of all beings, the eternal innocence of all beings. And we're all one. Every soul, whether it be human, animal, vegetable, mineral, I think we're all connected in that one consciousness. And by practicing forgiveness, but we let go of the ego's illusions, and including the belief of death. And we awaken to the awareness of eternal life. And I think that's the common denominator of all religions, which is eternal life. So I'd like to believe in that. Anybody have anything to say about that?
Gloria?
Yeah, that's it. That's what we're always here learning, that all there is eternal life. In complete forgiveness, it's the relinquishment of judgment, which means we're surrendering to our human thought and just resting in the presence of what is. And I think for many of us, it'd be easy to attach ourselves to that story about the ostriches and, but it's there to really teach us that there is no death. And it reminded me of something my mother always used to say when you were speaking, Myrna, about like absent from the body, present with the Lord. The idea is even we can take that Bible verse and recognize that without the concept of the body, all there is the light, the one light that we are, which is, omnipresence everywhere. I like when you started speaking about the dog, Susan, and that recognition that, the innocence of the dog and the sinlessness and the guiltlessness. It's so easy to experience that infinite invisible life when we recognize that this, beyond this concept of the dog, is this eternal life that Myrna was just talking about. And to recognize it beyond the flower, the bird, the tree, that all there is this one invisible life that's infinite without end. And we can't really entertain the infinite possibilities that can present. So the idea is to be in this moment focused on that presence that I am. And as we die daily to this false concept of the body, you know, in the infinite way, they call it dying daily to the personal sense of self. And someone's like, oh, I don't like that concept, dying daily. Well, letting go of the false concept, being willing to recognize what is really there. And, you know, what you were saying was so true, that we all want to feel loved, safe, free, whole, well, complete. When you gave the story of your dad, I mean, he wasn't feeling loved, he wasn't feeling safe, he wasn't feeling, oh, well, complete. He wasn't feeling that. So then, therefore, his behavior is a call for love. All calls for love are to be met with love. Either it's a call for love or an extension of it. So if he's calling for love, we recognize that it's our job to meet that call for love with love. But we can only do that if we accept ourselves as love. That love is what I am. Because if we are in that ego mind, we're seeing separation. We're seeing the call for love. If we're in the Christ mind, we're recognizing only the light of God that's beyond that concept and all concepts. And that's what Jesus is asking us to do, to see the face of Christ in everyone. That doesn't mean the face of Jesus. That's the
My
recognition
voice is
of
my
the
password. Please
of the
verify.
innocence and love everywhere. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Um, you know, lesson 153 states, in my defenselessness, my safety lies. So when we embody our innocence, when we realize we have nothing to defend, that is where we have access to our true self, our true sense of empowerment. It's really interesting how that works, but that goes hand in hand with our strength being our innocence. So it says in this lesson, defenselessness is strength. It testifies to recognition of the Christ in you. Perhaps you will recall that the text maintains that choice is always made between Christ's strength and your own weakness seen apart from him. Defenselessness can never be attacked because it recognizes strength, so great attack is folly, or a silly game a tired child might play when he becomes too sleepy to remember what he wants. So when we realize that we have nothing to defend, that's when we access the truth of who we are. You know, you think about this, like the ego gets angry. The ego feels the need to defend his position. The ego feels the need to win arguments. You know, the ego is really very weak and fearful and dark. I think the ego resides in a very dense energy, a very low energy. You know, as we can raise our energy and we can vibrate, you know, to the energy of joy and love and God and innocence. You know, there is so much that we can accomplish in this world. You know, so again, everything is how we see things. Earlier we were talking about how we see things. I was talking about that picture where you can see the ugly old woman or the pretty young woman. It all depends on what you choose to focus upon. You know, I had a friend of mine And her daughter was going through a period in her life where she was very, very angry. So she really, on a pretty consistent basis, was giving my friend, her mother, the middle finger because she was in life in general, she was just very angry. So a lot of times we take out our anger on the people that we love the most, and so this daughter was giving my friend the middle fingers, and it hurt my friend's feeling. But then she decided that she would try to see this gesture in a different way. So in her mind, she says, okay, my daughter is just telling me how much she loves me. So the middle finger, instead of F you, meant I love you. And so the daughter gave her the middle finger and she says, I love you too. So she gives the daughter the middle finger back and says, I love you too. So she made the fuck you gesture. She turned the fuck you gesture, the angry gesture, into I love you. And I guess there's different ways that you can look at that. But to really see it from a Course in Miracles perspective, I guess what my friend did is she saw this fuck you symbol, the middle finger, instead of an angry gesture, she saw it as a call for love. And she said with the middle finger, and I love you too so much. I mean, when you really think about that, wouldn't that be beautiful? If we could all see the angry gestures, the fuck you gestures as a call for love. When the driver cuts you off and gives you the middle finger, again, just tell him how much that you love him in return.
That was
Because
great,
again,
Susan.
isn't that great, Myrna?
Yeah, you know why?
Yeah.
I'm thinking, next time somebody gives me the middle finger, I'm going to go, I love you too. Isn't that a great response? It's just what I'm going to do. I love you too. I just had to put that in.
No, I know. I just thought about that because there's different ways you can see that story, but I love you. That's like so empowering. And that's so Course in
I love it.
Miracles,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
No, thank you. Thank you. And then I heard Glorian talk about how her friend as well as my friend said that they finished A Course in Miracles, and really that's almost impossible to do unless you attain a state of enlightenment, which is very rare, because it's just a constant, it's a constant mindset. I guess that's a good word. It's a constant mindset. What I thought about is I thought about Bill Thetford, what I heard about Bill Thetford on the day of his death. I heard that he was dancing and extremely happy, right before he died. I believe, and I could be wrong, anyone feel free to correct me. I believe he had a heart attack at the end of his life, but I also believe he was dancing in the front yard right before he had a heart attack. So he was very, very happy because from what I hear about Bill Thetford is he really worked A Course in Miracles and he really worked on forgiveness. And again, I mean, forgiveness is our way to transform the hell that is now manifest on this earthly plane into heaven. Thoughts, Myrna?
Yeah, just what you were saying about Bill Thetford, what did I hear about that? I don't know. Probably he took the Course in Miracles and what he teaches as, reading into his own death, and And he was, I can understand that. I really can. To some people, just preparing to die is almost like packing to go home. So I kind of like to kind of think that way too, that I hope that I react that way. I think I will. I really do. From the way I feel now, I really just want to go so peacefully, just want to go home peacefully. And so many people are so afraid of dying, and I really don't even understand that. Because I mean, I'm at my years where I'm getting closer to it. I mean, I'm up there in my years. So I like to kind of think of just kind of packing to go home. Yeah.
Any final thoughts, Glorian?
Yeah, well, what I love what you shared about Bill. What I heard that he was like in a space where he was living the life fantastic, and he was at a barbecue for his birthday, and he was in the driveway, and he was just so happy and joyous, and someone drove to go to the grocery, and he's like, I'll walk, I'll meet you there, and then he just had this, massive heart attack, and he left his body. So yeah, I really like that story as well, that, he did come to that space, and we really can't ever judge anyone's unfoldment or where they are. But, seemingly, we're not going to finish the course because I don't think we finished the course. I think it's an unfoldment then. And like I said before, this is infinite. We have no idea of the infinite possibilities awaiting us as we proceed on our journey. And I just wanted to say what you said about, defense and attack, the sword or the shield, it's the same thing. And when we choose defenselessness, we've accepted that the love of God sustains us. So, and also, of course, when we were talking about that. So as we go out, we're going to choose to, and every time that other word might come into our mind, we're going to choose to say, bless you, brother. That's it. That's our job. That's our mission. Thanks.
Thank you, Glorian. Thank you, Myrna. Thank you all for being here. Dove and Lynn and Mickey. I will return the microphone to Lynn. I will quote the intro as I usually do when we end our talks. Course in Miracles states, nothing real can be threatened, nothing unreal exists. Herein lies the peace of God. The only thing that's real is the love. Thank God for that. Thank you, thank you. And I will now return the microphone to Lynn.
Thank you all. Love you.
So beautiful. Thank you so much. And I appreciate it very much, you guys all being here and sharing on this beautiful Friday afternoon. It is afternoon here now, finally. All right, I love you guys and hope to see some of you tomorrow morning for our study of a course in Bruce and I reading Absence from Felicity. And so that's been a lot of fun, and we've been learning a lot about Bill and Helen. So great, great, great. And next we're going to start reading Ken Wapnick's autobiography. So that's going to be a lot of fun as well.